The other day, I accidentally ate a cookie. Not these cookies, but like a special kind of cookie. And because I don't typically eat those kinds of cookies, I was given a full-on cookie experience. And when I reached the 7th level of psychoactive hell, I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of that one Black Mirror episode, Playtest. So naturally, I'm in the mood to talk about Playtest. And of course, I'm gonna spoil Black Mirror seasons 1 through 3 for you. And I'm gonna spoil the game Bioshock, but you'll see why. In Playtest, we follow Cooper Redfield, who decides to live the lifestyle of that one friend of yours who's always on vacation and traveling to these prime rib locations, then constantly posting about it on social media, but you have no idea how they can afford it because they don't have a job or any means of income or didn't get rich off of crypto, but somehow they've been to more places than you and I could even fathom. However, Cooper runs into this unexpected issue that's closer to my existence where he runs out of money. But in Cooper's case, his information is stolen as somebody bought a pair of jet skis and other stuff using his account. I always loved how Cooper tries to pull money out of an ATM that's owned by National Allied Bank, the same bank that Kenny robs in the next episode. Shut Up and Dance, that's the next episode. Kenny's in Shut Up and Dance. So Cooper, there's other ways to get money out of National Allied, just saying. But instead of committing armed robbery or calling his mommy, Cooper crashes on Sonia's couch and then tries earning money for a plane ticket back home by using sketchy odd job apps. Oh, and Hannah John-Kamen over here, who plays Sonia, also plays Selma in the episode 15 Million Merits. Anyway, now that we established that, let's continue with Cooper finding work. When in one of those apps, Cooper comes across a job from Saito Gemu. Sonia tells Cooper to get in there and take a photo of whatever cool tech Saito Gemu has, because a photo would give Cooper way more monies than however many monies Saito Gemu would give him. But wait a second, the only way Sonia would know that is because Sonia, this person right here, this one, had been working as a technology correspondent for about 2 years now, mainly running a website about industry pieces featuring some video stuff, mainly talking about games, like these games on her shelf. But then during her date with Cooper, Cooper tries to ask more about her job. However, Sonia completely navigates the conversation away from her and changes it to be about Cooper.
Tech's awesome.
So where have you been so far?
Sonia, straying away from this question, informs me that she's probably not satisfied with where she's at with her career right now. But if she can send this third-party pawn to waltz into Saito Gemu, infiltrate their system in order to obtain this golden nugget of a photograph, and then send it to her, she can then post the secret photograph to her website and then finally get all the internet traffic she's been yearning for this entire time. Or maybe she just wanted Cooper to make more money and then kindly gave him the advice because she was pretty knowledgeable in that area. I don't know. Either way, Cooper sends that toasty photo to Sonia. However, Katie comes back in the room, so Cooper scrambles like my breakfast eggs to get back into his seat in order to look all cool and innocent. I guess he ends up being a sly Cooper, but Cooper forgets to do one thing: to turn his freaking phone back off. Katie is oblivious to the shenanigans that Cooper just pulled, so she gets Cooper to sign the release form and is able to perform the small medical procedure of implanting the mushroom in the back of his head.
I haven't killed anyone yet.
You spoke a little bit too soon there, Katie. Cooper, just say no.
May I?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. When Katie first initializes the mushroom, Cooper's phone starts ringing, and Katie goes like, oh, I should have turned that puppy off, and then we continue watching 40 more minutes of the episode. But here's how the scene actually plays out in real time.
Nearly there.
Mom!
And then Cooper dies faster than my hopes and dreams, mainly because the signals from cellular devices like smartphones interfere with the mushroom, kind of like how phone signals supposedly mess with aviation electronics and transmissions. If you rewind the episode and listen closely, you can actually hear the interference before the phone even rings. This caused every synapse in Cooper's brain to light up at once, and then suddenly go dead. When Katie starts up the system at 5:38, it's the beginning of the upload sequence. You can see right here that the blue bars are representing the process of the upload, and at one point the remaining bars glow red as the phone signal interrupts the process, telling us that the upload never finished. So the most rational explanation going forward is that Cooper never experienced the augmented reality program. Instead, he experienced a side effect effect of the signal messing with the mushroom. That side effect, of course, being every synapse in his brain lighting up at the same time. Cooper's nightmare was caused by the technology having an error, so his brain was creating the horror show. With every synapse in his brain lighting up at once, Cooper goes through the ultimate nightmare. Something similar to one of those dreams that you and I have definitely experienced at one point, where you wake up from a dream inside of a dream and you can't tell if you're in a dream or if you're in reality or if you woke up or if you're still asleep, and you're like, brain, chill. So in 0.04 seconds, Cooper experiences all of this. I can't believe they told us the twist at the beginning of the episode. If you look at the Harlech Shadow, the Fear Within poster, it was foreshadowing where the nightmare experience was taking place. Inside Cooper's head. The fear was coming from within. Playtest is perhaps the most layered episode of the series, in terms of how well thought out every little detail is. When Katie brings Cooper to the Harlech Shadow House, or the Gamekeeper's Lodge, she tells Cooper that the layout was replicated from the game and the textures were scanned. This is what was happening, except it was Cooper replicating the layout of everything, as the textures were being scanned from his memories, using his memories to create this entire world. So when Cooper asks, "Are you doing this or is this f***ing me?" and then Katie replies,
I think that's all you.
she wasn't lying. Katie explains that Saito Gemu is working on the most personal survival horror game in history, one that works out how to scare you by using your own mind against you. But it was Cooper who is working out how to scare himself in what is essentially the ultimate nightmare. To me, this falls in line perfectly with the overall theme of Black Mirror, that the true horror comes less from the technology, but more from ourselves. Because Cooper is using the texture packs from his memories, it's no coincidence that the exterior of Cooper's house in Syracuse closely resembles the exterior of the Gamekeeper's Lodge. The program crashed because of phone interference, so when Cooper is on the plane flying back home, he and the rest of the passengers are told to turn off their electronic devices. This was something that also happened in the real world at the beginning of the episode, when the airline stewardess asks Cooper if he can switch off his phone, which is something that shouldn't really be happening in the year 2016, since airplane mode exists for that very reason. But it makes sense thematically, I guess, as it's foreshadowing how he forgets to turn off his phone, causing, you know. In the holy grail of books about Black Mirror, called Inside Black Mirror, the series creator Charlie Brooker went on to say that when writing the script for Playtest, it had to somehow have whack-a-mole in it, as the original idea for the script consisted of somebody answering an advert, and then going to test this augmented reality whack-a-mole system. He whacks the moles, gets better and better at it, then the moles get faster and faster, and then they can't switch it off. So everywhere he looks in his life, these little cartoon moles pop up and he has to keep whacking them. If he stops, they fill his whole vision. If he sleeps, he wakes up and there's like thousands of moles. Then the guy eventually loses his mind. Remember that scene where Sho tells his employees to put Cooper with the others? The original way that scene was supposed to play out was our protagonist getting taken to a room full of other people who have gone insane by seeing all those moles. Anyway, that was just a really elongated way of me trying to bring up the whack-a-mole game and how it's another product of Cooper's memories. Before he began playing, Cooper claims that he played whack-a-mole 1,000,000 times, which is why his mind went straight to whack-a-mole when he saw those gamepads, as the gamepads most likely served a purpose that was not related to whack-a-mole at all. And speaking of the gamepads, on the gamepads you can see the White Bear logo from the episode White Bear. You know, the one Victoria Spillane's now ex-boyfriend Ian Rennick was rocking on the back of his neck when he crimed. Naming the implant a mushroom is a good reference to the Mario games, but it could also be representative of another type of mushroom. Let's keep explaining how Cooper's memory shaped his mushroom experience. Cooper only sees this man appear in the window of the painting because he remembered that there was a man standing in the window of the Harlech Shadow poster. The only way Cooper knows what Sho looks like is because Sonia showed him the cover of Edge magazine, a cover that contained Sho's face. When Cooper first meets Sho, Sho bows to him, something that Cooper jokingly does when he first meets Katie. It's safe to assume that this is one of the only things that Cooper knows about Japanese culture, which is why at the end of the episode, Sho is speaking in fluent Japanese, but when Cooper goes into Sho's office and sees him in the Gamekeeper's Lodge, Sho is talking in English. I just love how when we first meet Sho, he's all like, "You must be our latest volunteer," proving that he's fluent in English, but when Cooper tries to talk to Sho in basic English, like trying to say that the game was fun.
Super fun. Super fun.
Show has a very hard time understanding it, and Katie has to then translate for him. Cooper's mind wanted to make Sho speak a different language, but it didn't know how. In that one holy book I was talking about earlier called Inside Black Mirror, the series production designer Joe Collins went on to say that they built the Harlech house on the Unity game engine. So people were actually building a real game on set at the game company. You can see it in the background. It's all there. And I guess he was being a truther because you can see it here and here. When Cooper is getting brought through the offices of Saito Gameu, you can see an employee walking through the lobby wearing a shirt with a spider on it. This is the second spider we see in the episode. The first spider being the one in the movie that Cooper's watching on the plane. Witnessing both these spiders is what caused this spider and this bigger spider to enter the chat later on. Cooper mentions that he used to play Harlech Shadow in his buddy David Ludwig's basement when they were younger, explaining how Cooper's brain knows the layout of the Gamekeeper's Lodge. Also, the house being called the Gamekeeper's Lodge explains why Cooper comes across a bunch of animals hanging up on the wall and just covering the entire place. Cooper meets Sonia at the Raven Inn. Then later in the episode, Cooper is seen reading a book of short stories written by Edgar Allan Poe, specifically reading the short story The Raven. You know, because their names both have the word Raven in it. The Raven is a short story about a narrator who can't trust his own mind, as he lets his fears and insecurities consume him. Remind you of anyone? When Cooper is in the HQ, he passes a poster for an E-rated video game called Skinned Alive. It's hanging up on the wall right here. And to the right of that poster, you can see 3 skulls. For some reason. These memories combined with Cooper seeing a DVD of the cult classic Face Off, as well as this red Sonia poster that's hanging up in Sonia's apartment, caused Cooper's brain to piece together the sequence where fake Sonia attacks Cooper, leading Cooper to unintentionally rip Sonia's face off, revealing a red skull underneath. I don't want to inflate my ego anymore at this point because it's almost at critical mass, but please tell me how many other channels out there would have pointed out the red Sonia poster. This is the benefit to watching a creator with an unreasonable love for Black Mirror and no social life. During this calm and peaceful fight between the two of them, Sonia stabs Cooper in the right shoulder using a knife, and then she pushes him into the ground, causing the pointy end of the knife to exit through the front of his shoulder. This is the same location as the scar that was given to him by Josh Peters, high school bully, after they got into a fight together in shop class, which resulted in Josh hitting Cooper with a metal rod thing. The fight between Sonia and Cooper happens in the kitchen of the Gamekeeper's Lodge, and Sonia's main weapon is a knife. Like how the conversation where Cooper opened up to Sonia happened in her kitchen, and the object that was given the most attention in that scene would be a knife. Speaking of big old bully Josh Peters, if we go back to the brief tour of Saito Gameu, Cooper passes this game designer designing clothing belonging to one of the characters from Harlech Shadow. Certified bully Josh Peters is seen wearing the same exact clothing later on. The Raven Inn is why Cooper ends up reading The Raven, but it's also possibly a reference to Marion Ravenwood and her bar from Indiana Jones' Raiders of the Lost Ark. In that movie, Marion's bar is also called The Raven. And speaking of Indiana Jones, Sonia asks Cooper where he's been on his trip so far, and she also says that he's traveling around the map like Indiana Jones. Then, later in the episode, Cooper rips a fake heart out of the goth version of Josh Peters' chest, and then screams Kali Ma. Kali Ma! The iconic line from the heart removal scene from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Next to the critically acclaimed film Face Off, there's a case for the game Bioshock 2. Do you remember at the beginning of this video when I was like, I'm gonna spoil Bioshock for you? Well, here it is. Here's the spoilers. When Katie asks Cooper to open the door to the access point, she says this:
Would you kindly open the door?
The phrase, "would you kindly," was said throughout the first Bioshock game by Andrew Ryan. Andrew used this phrase to activate post-hypnotic suggestions programmed into the mind of the lead protagonist, Jack, using this phrase to have Jack do things. After entering the access point, Katie says this:
I told you to come up here to see if we'd broken you enough to obey instructions without question.
Just like what Andrew Ryan was doing to Jack. At the end of the episode, you can see this info about Cooper, revealing that his last name is Redfield, named after Chris or Claire Redfield from the Resident Evil series. And you can see Resident Evil and Silent Hill in Sonia's video game collection. And Charlie Brooker and friends used Resident Evil and Silent Hill as a reference point for the episode. In fact, the episode was originally supposed to take place in Tokyo, Tokyo, Japan. Resident Evil is made by Capcom, and Silent Hill is made by Konami, both Japanese video game developers and publishers, which explains the inspiration behind Saito Gemu. This edition of Edge magazine right here was actually designed by Edge magazine themselves. On the front cover of this magazine, you can see Inside TCKR, turning nostalgia into a game, a reference to TCKR's nostalgic Afterlife program called San Junipero from the episode appropriately titled San Junipero. On the bottom of the cover, you can see a whole bunch of stuff that they're reviewing, and one of the things that they're reviewing is Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror standalone movie that wouldn't even come out for another 2 years after the premiere of Playtest. Over here on the bottom left corner of the magazine is Granular VT5 on test, referring to Granular, the robotics company that are responsible for the synthetic bees known as ADIs from the episode Hated in the Nation. All of this has absolutely nothing to do with what Cooper sees in his nightmare. I just thought it was a cool Easter egg. Yeah, if we go back to Sonia's video game collection, you can see Dark Souls 2. Hannah John-Kamen, who plays this person, also plays Sweet Shaokor in Dark Souls 2. Each episode of Black Mirror usually opens with the black screen, with a white title of the episode appearing in Proxima Nova bold. But I like how for this episode, they made it 8-bit and flashing like an arcade game. I love learning about the pre-production of this episode. At the time, there was a lot of interest and excitement American actors like Wyatt Russell had when getting involved with the show. Especially because up until that point, Black Mirror had been known for only being English and using only English actors and being in England or wherever the this is. Personally, I've never been into jump scares. I'm more of a Hereditary guy when it comes to horror, so a couple of jump scares here and there are cool. However, they tend to annoy me mostly because I'm a pretentious, narcissistic, aging hipster who wants to play the contrarian, but also because jump scares typically don't scare you by the thing popping into the frame. Instead, it usually just makes you jump because of the sudden burst of loud noise that goes from one to the moon in an instant. At that point, I'm more startled because somebody set off a nuke next to my ear. So it was refreshing to see what the director of the episode, Dan Trachtenberg, did with the jump scares in Playtest. In Inside Black Mirror, Trachtenberg claims that there's a math to the jump scare that he wanted to play with. Sometimes Cooper is aware that a scare is coming, and then it's delivered to him and us in an unexpected way. And to me, I feel like that's why this episode succeeds with its jump scares, because of how it goes against the convention, using common tactics but twisting it in a way to catch us off guard. So it's good that they carefully plan out the jump scares, unlike other shows that aim for a world record in jump scares. And I'm over here like, that's supposed to make me want to watch the show? The character of Sonia, this character right here, is actually inspired from more personal experiences that director Dan Trachtenberg and writer Charlie Brooker went through, as they both used to be tech journalists back in the day. Charlie Brooker, before he was known for causing a lot of controversy, used to write video game reviews for the magazine PC Zone during the mid to late 90s. And Trachtenberg was a co-host on the Totally Rad Show podcast, which was known to review video games. All Cooper had to do was call his mother and have her transfer some funds so he could buy a ticket home. Then Cooper would be safe, and nothing bad would ever happen to him again, and he'd live a happy ever after kind of life. But Cooper would rather do obscure odd jobs instead of talking to her. So Cooper's punishment is existential horror. Let's get to know Cooper a little bit more. Cooper lives at home with his mother back in Syracuse. Cooper was taking care of his father, this guy in the picture frame who passed away from Alzheimer's. Cooper considered his dad his best friend. It's been a year since his father's death, and you can clearly tell it still haunts him. In Inside Black Mirror, Dan Trachtenberg said that initially Cooper's relationship with his mom was quite different. She was overtly neurotic, and his death was more her fault for constantly trying to dote on her grown son. But they decided to take it in another direction. So in this final version of the script, Cooper was reluctant to pick up the phone because of the space that he created between him and his mother, avoiding his grieving mother by leaving the family home and traveling the world. Cooper wanted to talk to her, he just didn't want to do it over the phone. But if you ask me, I think he was just making excuses for himself. He feels like he's lacking this connection with his mom, so he keeps clicking on pre-typed messages like, "I'm at work, speak later," and it's like, yeah right Cooper, like you have a job. Cooper's nightmare is a big old combination of all of his fears and insecurities. In his nightmare, he uses fake Katie to call himself out for how he talks more when he's afraid and needs to calm himself down, as well as the fact that he's definitely one to deflect with humor. Fake Katie also calls him out for leaving the TV on at night so he feels less alone. Not Sonia even mentions that 5 people disappeared in the last year who were registered with the Odd Jobs app. This was never mentioned or talked about in the real world. It was just an internal concern that Cooper must have had when trying out the app. But in the end, when Sho has Cooper's dead body get taken away like it's just another day at the office, it leads me to believe that this statistic is true, and that Saito Gameu may be responsible for some of those disappearances. The fact that Sho Saito has a body bag and a cleanup crew on standby is slightly concerning. Cooper may have heard about the disappearances at one point in the real world, but was unable to make the connection that Saito Gameu was responsible for said disappearances. Then a little bit down the road, fake Sonia tells Cooper that he should have called his mom.
Should have called your mom, Cooper.
This is when Cooper's toxic inner monologue starts hammering itself in, as it develops from "you should have called your mom" to "you abandoned her." These intrusive thoughts about abandoning his mother start to manifest themselves in different ways. For example, in order to end the experience, Cooper has to get to the access point, but the only way to get to the access point is by walking up these stairs. This right here is mirroring the moment where Cooper goes up the stairs to get to his mom's room. The door at the end of the hall in the Gamekeeper's Lodge matches where his mother's room is in the home back in Syracuse. So when Cooper gets the feeling that he's gonna see something really bad behind that door, he's getting that feeling because the door is emblematic of the one that belongs to his mother, the same door he's been avoiding since the beginning of the episode. Cooper mentions to Sonia that sometimes his father would look at him and not even know who he was. While Cooper took care of his father, he developed this fear of also suffering from Alzheimer's. So in the nightmare, Cooper suffers from severe memory loss, also known as a symptom of Alzheimer's. The memory loss is caused by the mushroom having data tendrils like roots and weeding through his brain. The tendrils apparently dug in deeper than they were meant to, and thread through his brain, taking over whole areas of it. Earlier, in the nightmare, when we first entered Sho Saito's office, you can see these 3 pictures of a mushroom and its roots hanging up on the wall, representing what is supposedly happening to Cooper's brain later on. But overall, this artwork is indicative of Cooper's fears looming in the back of his mind. By the way, we see Cooper ignore his mom's calls a total of 1, 2, 3, and 4 times. And on the 4th time, it kills him. The entire runtime of the simulation is 0.04 seconds. In Chinese numerology, the number 4 is kind of unlucky, as it's representative of death. If you're a newbie to Black Mirror and have just gotten to season 3, pay attention to the number 4 when you see it throughout the series. Anyway, Cooper didn't call his mom and now he's dead. So I think the real lesson here is to call your mom back. On the report, Katie writes that Cooper called his mom, as Cooper was calling out for his mom before he died. Mom! Mom! So in the end, I guess Cooper did technically call her. I liked how they added more salt to the wound by playing the song Mama Like the Roses by Elvis Presley at the end of the episode. And that is the sadistic nature I expect from Black Mirror. Anyway, those are all my thoughts about Playtest today, so thanks for watching.